Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Karen Wyatt, and in this bonus episode, I'm going to share with you an excerpt from my new book, Wild and Holy. I'll be narrating the introduction for you, just to give you a little brief taste of this book and what it consists of. So here we go. I sat motionless and numb in the waiting area of the international terminal where my flight to Rome would soon be taking off. Every fiber of my being was telling me not to go. The trip was ruined already, and it would be a disaster. My heart was somewhere else, and I couldn't seem to retrieve it. This downward spiral of grief was familiar to me, but I hadn't experienced it for years. I thought I was finished with grief. But here it was again, snatching my soul down to its underworld on the very day we were embarking on our second honeymoon. I rehearsed what I would say to my husband when I turned to leave the airport. I'm sorry, I'm just too broken right now to go on this trip. I can't do it. Please forgive me. But when I raised my eyes to speak, I saw the look of joy on his face, pure, excited anticipation of our dream vacation, the second honeymoon we had looked forward to for years. I couldn't break his heart. I couldn't crush him under the grief that was crushing me. I didn't want to go, but I couldn't stay behind either. The choice had already been made by something deeper than will. I had to go through the motions and make the best of it. The cost of canceling our shared dream was just too great. This is the story of that ruined trip to Italy during the H1N1 flu pandemic, of the unexpected event the morning of our departure that plunged me into a grief spiral, of a journey I wanted to cancel but continued out of love, of an unplanned pilgrimage through grief that ended up changing everything. I didn't recognize what was happening while we were there. Only in retrospect could I see that I had experienced an archetypal journey that required a descent into the depths of my own past grief before I could return with new wisdom. Joseph Campbell calls this the hero's journey and describes it as a universal pattern found in stories across centuries, cultures, and religions. But I have come to think of it as a healer's journey, one that is required in order to walk beside others through the darkness of life and become the medicine necessary for healing. This journey, which I now see more clearly after years of reflection, forms the framework for the book. First, the departure, a disruption in my ordinary world that forced me to leave it behind and undertake a journey to the unknown. Next, the descent, a process of entering into my inner depths and the pain of grief and guilt. Finally, the return, coming back home as a new person, and the challenge of integrating new wisdom into my old life. And that has turned out to be a lifelong journey, even though the pilgrimage described here took place on one 2-week trip to Italy. To this day, I continue to cycle through the insights and lessons it taught me, ever expanding in my understanding and wisdom. This healer's journey took me to the underworld of my psyche, where I had sequestered the grief and guilt that were too painful to address after my father's suicide death. Within my shadow, I saw the archaeology of my old exiled grief, tangled with a lifetime of feeling responsible for the pain of the world and not good enough to do anything about it. Amazingly and somewhat miraculously, all of this unfolded on a trip we had planned 1 year earlier as a romantic getaway. Though the itinerary for the trip remained the same, the actual experience was totally different than anything I could have imagined. Grief formed the lens through which I looked at Italy and shaped my awareness while I traveled from place to place, experiencing my own unique journey unlike any average tourist's trip through the country. While this story follows the arc of the healer's journey, it unfolds in the book more like a mosaic. Pieces of memory, ritual, history, and serendipity held together by the rough itinerary we had created for the trip a year in advance. Some sections arose in sacred spaces or ancient ruins. Others emerged from bus breakdowns, wrong turns, and quiet moments on trails and bridges. Interwoven throughout are reflections, small spirals of insight that have arisen over the years since that journey. Together, they form a map of grief and grace. It was not random or inconsequential that Italy was the setting for this healer's journey. Looking back, Italy was the perfect landscape for a pilgrimage of grief. The Romans believed that every location has what they named genius loci, or soul of place, a distinctive energy that permeates the culture, traditions, geography, art, and emotional resonance of a specific area. This soul of place is tangible throughout Italy in its sacred cathedrals, buried ruins, bombed-out bridges, Roman roads, and crumbling arches. Italy is a land shaped by loss and grief throughout its long existence, but enduring with beauty, creativity, and a passion for life that is vital and inspiring. Italy has a depth of character that is palpable when you're there. You feel it in the air. You sense it in the physical structures you walk through, rising from the stones in the streets, hovering in the corners of cathedrals, permeating the taste of its slow food, and resounding in the passionate voices of music and art. Italy was a safe container for me, the perfect backdrop for this healer's journey, this descent into my grief, because Italy carries grief out in the open. Italy is honest about her grief. She doesn't try to hide it, doesn't deny that it exists, but wears it on display for everyone to see. Grief is tended and cherished and cared for as part of history and culture, and also as part of the connection to a universe that is built upon a cycle of life and death, of order and disorder, of darkness and light, of joy and sorrow. Italy is a place to weep and grieve unabashedly, and Italy is also a place to celebrate the very miracle of being alive, to savor it, to feast and drink and sing and dance. Italy holds all of it in the open for us to participate, and received me into its open arms on my journey. When I didn't know what was happening or where I was going, Italy provided me with gentle nudges, inspirations, and intuition that kept me safe and held, but also guided and supported throughout the journey, even though I didn't realize it at the time. The title of this book, Wild and Holy, emerged from the lived experience of grief as both unpredictable and sacred. It reflects the truth that grief, like love, cannot be managed or controlled. Grief is wild in its nature, rising without warning, dashing our expectations, pulling us off course from any map we thought we were following. And at the same time, grief offers us an opportunity for spiritual growth that cannot be duplicated by any of the comfortable moments of life. Wild grief cannot be contained. It floods us with emotion, spirals us into memory and longing, and breaks our hearts open again and again. This grief demands to be felt, heard, and honored, and will wreak havoc if it is locked away and ignored. Francis Weller wrote in The Wild Edge of Sorrow, "Grief reveals the undeniable reality of our bond with the world. The wildness of our grief defines us as humans, as part of the natural world." But Weller goes on to say, grief offers a wild alchemy that transmutes suffering into fertile ground. Grief is also holy and reveals itself slowly as grace, beauty, and meaning unearthed from pain. This holy aspect of grief is found in candlelit chapels and broken open prayers, in moments of surrender, in the gentleness that follows sorrow. Holy grief is what we discover when we turn toward the pain instead of away, when we allow it to come to the surface instead of hiding it inside. To walk through grief is to walk through something both wild and holy. It does not unfold in straight lines and cannot be explained by logic. And yet, with time and tenderness, we begin to see that each moment of grief is an invitation to excavate the pain and hold it in the light, an opportunity to alchemize our suffering into something sacred. These pages tell the story of that journey, of the chaos of mourning, the crushing weight of guilt, and the whispering grace that rises from its depths. This is the story of how I found joy again, not by turning away from grief, but by walking deeper into it. It's about how history, beauty, and broken buses became part of my healing, how the saints I never expected to care about rose up to meet me, and how a non-religious woman found solace in the sacred through stones, story, and silence. This is an offering to all who are walking the same path, those who grieve, who feel guilt, who seek peace, who long to remember love. May this book be a companion on your own journey. And that is the introduction to my book, Wild and Holy, which is available on Kickstarter right now as this bonus episode airs until October 21st. You can get Wild and Holy through Kickstarter. You can get ebooks, paperback books, hardcover books, signed and an unsigned paperback if you prefer. You can bundle it together with an itinerary for a similar pilgrimage through Italy, and a grief travel guidebook that tells you all about how to create grief travel and schedule that travel. And right now we are working on a stretch goal. If we reach it, the goal is $3,000. If we reach that goal, I will share with everyone a recorded presentation I made for the Scientific and Medical Network titled The Journey from Ego to Soul, Grief as a Bridge to Your Higher Self. It was a really well-received presentation, and I think you'll really enjoy it. So if we make it to 3,000, everyone will receive access to that presentation. If you're interested, you can go to tinyurl.com/wildandholy, and that will take you to the Kickstarter campaign where you can choose a tier as low as $10 for the ebook and become a backer. And you can receive these wonderful bonuses and also help bring this book into the world. So I hope you'll check it out, tinyurl.com/wildandholy. And I'll be back in a couple of days with the next regular episode of the podcast. And until then, thanks for listening in today. Bye-bye.